And thank you so much for joining. I know many people missed you at the Adobe Summit, the virtual version of the Adobe Summit. So this will be our opportunity to visit with you, and grateful that you were able to make the time.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.
First up, I would love to hear from you on how you were finding ways to thrive in this new normal.
It's been interesting for me because I have never worked from home before. At Adobe, our policy really is not to work from home. And I have found myself to be extremely productive here, which one would think is not the case. But I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues, not just at Adobe, but at other companies. And there's a theme here. I think all of us are working harder than we've ever worked before, but it's very satisfying to be able to do your job and kind of overcome a lot of the obstacles that are before us. And so I feel extraordinarily productive. On the other hand, I miss, the rapport, even though video conference is my life. I miss that, just in the hallway kind of conversations and, being stuck in one room in front of one kind of camera and the monitor is not ideal.
So one of the things that I think is really exciting about Adobe is the view that you have into so many aspects of the economy and consumer behavior. And I know just this week you launched the Digital Economy Index, and I thought you might be able to tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in that data, what it tells us.
Yeah, so this was a project that we were working on for some time, and it's actually a multi-year project. There's no other company or federal agency that does a consumer spending index online, which is remarkable. And so we took the task because we're processing trillions of transactions a day with Adobe Analytics, and we have thousands of retailers as our customers. So we have a really good vantage point to understand what's going on in the economy. With COVID, we decided let's do kind of a special component of the study before we introduce it about COVID related purchases over a 3-week period. And as you can imagine, e-commerce is exploding. Over the period, which ended actually March 21st, there was already a 25% surge in overall e-commerce. Certain categories like groceries, 100% increase. Fitness equipment, 55% increase. People are actually buying like dumbbells online.
I can imagine, right?
Medication, people are hoarding medication. People are hoarding, of course, hand sanitizers, toilet paper and the things that you imagine. Some really interesting statistics on geographic behavior. So there are certain states that are, the heavy e-commerce states, California, Oregon, Washington State, Ohio, surprisingly, and New York. And those are the top spenders. And in some of the middle states and some of the southern states, they're at the bottom of the pile. So some really interesting data, and it's been validated by two really prominent economists, one at Stanford, one at the University of Chicago.
That's terrific. And what initially motivated Adobe to invest and launch the index? Obviously prior to COVID.
Yeah, so we have been doing a holiday report every year to predict what holiday shopping will be online. And this is something that's anticipated every year to, figure out what the e-commerce growth is, also what categories are doing well, pricing, sales, and promotions, et cetera. So that has been going on for a long time. And we decided that we wanted to do a bigger study. And it started off as really a global index to understand deflation, inflation, purchasing behavior at a very large scale. And we weren't going to introduce it right now, but with COVID, we said, let's introduce it. Let's do a COVID component because there's so much change happening in the digital economy. And that's why we launched it.
I think it's going to be super helpful, both for this moment, but also benchmarking against it going forward.
Exactly.
All right, so you launched Vegas to virtual. Which I know is a huge undertaking. For those of us who have been to the summit, obviously, and your partners and your audience as well. Tell us about what the planning was like and what you learned, both in terms of what is a bit challenging because it's impossible to get the benefit that would have been gained with that many people in one area versus the real benefits that you derive from it.
Yeah. So I looked at the dates, quite frankly, because I wanted to remember when we actually made the decision to pivot from live to a digital summit. So on March 2nd, we announced that we were going to cancel the live Vegas summit. That is literally a month ago. That was plan A. Plan B was to film the whole thing at our San Jose offices. And so we're going to trick the whole place out. We had production crews. Then, of course, we closed all of our offices. So that was plan B. And then plan C, we did not start planning literally until March 11th. And so in 20 days, we created this digital experience. And there are a lot of things that you miss, right? I mean, part of Summit, you know, there's kind of this thrilling vibe of having everyone together. We were expecting over 25,000 people. So there's a camaraderie, a community. You have, you know, celebrities. We were supposed to have Tom Brady and Gwyneth Paltrow. And so
you still had Tom Brady.
Still had Tom Brady. We filmed him the day before the shelter at home.
He was good.
Ridiculous. He was kind of good.
Yeah.
So anyway, you missed that, but I can't believe that my team could pull this off. I mean, honestly, it's an extraordinary achievement. In 3 weeks, we filmed every single thing at home. Shantanu, my boss, Anil Chakrabarti, the head of the Experience Cloud group, 6 other keynotes, Tom Brady, and then 120 breakout sessions, all filmed by the people in their own homes. And then we released the Digital Economy Index. We built an entire web experience using, of course, AEM and Target, of course, analytics to measure all the traffic. We had 300,000 people visit. And 60,000 social conversations trending on Twitter. Some of the most emotional, lovely comments. Thank you so much for having this. I've been coming for over 10 years and I really appreciated you doing it. So it was just wonderful.
That's great. And it's, how many actually watched it live at the first time it was airing versus just coming back and looking at the content that is still available?
So 120,000 people watched it over the 2-hour period.
That's terrific.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
17,000 people were ready at 8:30 when it opened.
Wow. Well, I will say, I'm not much of a Patriots fan, but I thought Tom Brady did a great job playing off of the notion of a playbook, which I know is a super important aspect of what Adobe delivers, and really making the sports analogy relevant to what you know, CEOs and executive teams are applying to the Adobe Digital Playbook. So I thought he did it. I thought he did a great job.
But honestly, he was so, I thought, thoughtful, and the analogy again between, you know, your business life and your professional life on the field. I thought he did a great job.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too.
And I'm not a Pats fan either.
I guess it doesn't matter anymore, technically, right?
I hope there's football this year.
Me too. Go Cowboys. So I want to shift to education and social impact. So many of our clients are doing incredible things in this moment, whether it be, you know, LVMH and Anheuser-Busch, you know, retooling their factories to produce disinfectant products, or General Motors retooling to create masks. I mean, there's just so many stories of heroism, knowing that brands can really begin to lean in and solve some of this for us as a country. I know that Adobe's done some wonderful things around free software to help the learning that's happening as many of us move to, you know, being homeschooling, which is typical. Tell us a bit about the action, not only that action, but maybe other actions that Adobe's taking in this moment to really support the country, the world.
So education has always been a really important segment for us. And so when we realized that kids would be obviously learning from home, we decided to provision all schools that had Creative Cloud provision to them with at-home licenses for those students. So we have about 40 million students now who have access to Creative Cloud from home if they didn't have it already at their homes. And now the challenge, of course, is to give them stuff to do. So we do with our regular creative community, little lessons and tutorials. So one of our amazing artists did a drawing class this week, and, you know, thousands of kids attended because parents are looking for things for their kids to do.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So that's, I would say, one of the most important things that we've done. We've also given, of course, to our local community in San Jose and the Bay Area, to the Global Red Cross. And I think probably one of the best things that we do at Adobe is matching campaigns. So we have a 2-for-1 employee matching campaign for any COVID-related cause, and the goal is 1 million. We're almost there.
Wow.
We'll keep upping the number. So we do a lot. We're a very philanthropic company to begin with.
I know you are.
And so I think this is, you know, it's a time for all of us to kind of step up.
So Anne, this question is one that I always enjoy hearing from people, because there's so few brands who have the opportunity to take the products and services that you deliver and actually apply them to their own business. I call it eating your own dog food. Obviously, Adobe has that ability. Can you tell us about the digital transformation that you've been on as a company for others to learn from?
Yeah, so it really started about 10 years ago. I would say in 2009, we decided to move into an adjacent business, which was the acquisition of Omniture. And we in marketing had been using Omniture for our web analytics. And so we were very excited about this acquisition because we could tell that, you know, the web was going to become a much more significant part of our business. Then we continued to acquire a couple of other companies. And at the same time, we decided that we were going to shift our very successful, highly profitable packaged software business into a subscription business in the cloud. But we saw the writing on the wall. We said recurring revenue is going to be the best model for us moving forward, both for the success of the company, but also the street was really valuing companies that were in the cloud. And so over the course of really probably 5 to 6 years, we transformed every single thing. We started selling direct on our website, so we had to really, you know, improve the capabilities that we had. We used all of the tools that we had bought from these companies. And marketing was really on the front line because we were running the website. We had the most data about our customers. We started doing advanced modeling on mix, attribution. We hired an incredible team. So now I probably have 50 data scientists on my team. And we really, I would say, have very advanced capabilities in terms of our marketing and media return information. And then the whole company shifted. I mean, finance, they were collecting money up front. Now they have to collect it on a monthly basis. IT, we had to build huge infrastructure on multiple platforms. Sales organization, we had a very large channel distribution system. We still have channel distributors, but a lot of that obviously has now moved to the web. And so, I mean, a complete change out.
What do you think if you have customers or partners that are embarking on this journey? What's the advice you give them? And here's the one thing you need to get right before you actually leap in.
I would say, and I'm always careful about how I position this, but I would say technology is just the first step in this. And we sell technology. You have to buy the technology, but the people and process changes far overshadow.
Yeah, it's a cultural change. I noticed that when Shantanu was talking about Adobe's transformation in his keynote during the virtual summit, he had a line that said, "Design for brilliance and wire for intelligence." Mm-hmm. I thought was a beautiful way to articulate the beauty that results from the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the mission of the company has been for a long time, right brain, left brain, you know, wonderful design, but if you don't have wonderful intelligence and data, then, you know, the two really together are incredibly important. And so I think, you know, at Adobe, I have a remarkable creative studio, and not every company should do that. You know, I think for us, it really works because we have a very high bar for our creative, but we have an equally strong data organization, and they work really closely together. Because there's no advertising person who doesn't want the creative to work harder, and there's no data person who doesn't want to help the creative work harder. Yeah. So I think it's really become a very symbiotic process at Adobe, and I suspect that's happening at a lot of other companies.
You know, the one thing that I see happening, which I think is a wonderful advancement in the industry, and being a CMO as long as you have, you will know intuitively where this begun to change, is the relationship between the CMO and the CIO.
Yeah.
And the close partnership that has allowed both of those positions to have a more powerful seat at the executive table.
Yeah, so I think, and everybody always asks about the CMO-CIO relationship, but I think when I first got to Adobe, we were like the lowest on the totem pole of people that IT wanted to support. Like we were not perceived to be, you know, demand generating or revenue generating, and so we got zero attention. But when we started to build the e-commerce engine and the capability to know the customers so closely, then we got a lot of attention from IT. And now, of course, I mean, we're like this. You can't do anything without having IT and the infrastructure to support what we're doing. They built the data platform for us with our specifications and the product team specifications. So it's like, you know, one of the most critical relationships.
Yeah, without question. I see that across our client base, as marketing is proving the value of demand generation, as you noted. So a bit of a humble brag, I admit, but Dentsu is so proud to be one of Adobe's top partners. And just last week, we were announced Merkle won the 2020 Delivery Quality Enterprise Solution Partner Award, and Digital Pie won the 2020 Emerging Partner of the Year Award. And my question is—
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you on behalf of a large and very dedicated team to our clients that are working specifically on your installations. My question is around, in this moment, how do you see, and this either your own work with partners or how you're seeing other partners engage, how do you see this moment of shelter in place actually being an opportunity to advance relationships?
Well, the first thing I would say is people still want to connect, and they want to connect, I think, even more frequently than in the past. And so your clients, and I'm positive, want to talk to you a lot more in some cases than they did previously. They want to understand how they can pivot even more aggressively to digital. They want to understand what people in their categories are doing. I mean, we have been getting so many incoming inquiries, for instance, about how did you do your digital summit? We do conferences and events every year, but we have no idea how to do that. Can you document it for us? Can you give it to us? I think there's a huge opportunity for agencies of all sorts to really help clients do things that they weren't doing before. And you guys have those relationships. I mean, you have deep relationships, loyal, longstanding, trusted relationships, and I think there's so much need from a client perspective to help.
Yeah, you know, the one thing we started hosting last week, we had another one today, which is so simple, but we realized that the clients most want to talk to each other. They want to understand, to your point, how did you do the virtual summit? How quickly are you seeing Asia rebound since they're ahead of us on this? And what are some of the watch outs as people come back to work? And then if there's a relapse, what are they seeing in their business? We did a session again last week and another one today where clients are just sharing their own learnings. We're simply moderating the conversation, but just to your point, the opportunity to have more engagement and to really hear from one another, even if they're just different industries, there's always takeaways that are pretty consistent in terms of consumer behavior that we're finding really valuable.
Yeah, and I think industry by industry, and because you represent, you know, a breadth of industries, there are different needs. If you're in an industry that's being severely impacted, you need a certain amount of counsel in that regard. Like, how are you reaching out if you're a hotel chain or an airline? You know, I've been getting so many emails from travel companies that I work with, and those, you know, really require a lot of empathy in a way that you've never communicated before.
I've also seen some brands do some really interesting creative on TV where they've altered their message to be one that's that is empathetic. It's empathetic to the moment we're living in. I saw one that was specific to pets and the fact that your pet doesn't know why you're home. He's just glad you are. It was great. It's great creative work. Yeah, so happy. They're all so happy. Our children are less happy potentially.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you think the lasting change or changes might be as a result of our current environment.
I can't believe it's happening, just to be honest. And so I've thought a lot about how I personally will change, because I don't even think it's just the environment. I think every one of us will personally change. And and be much more reflective about, you know, all the privileges and benefits that we have in the normal world. I think from a business perspective, work from home, I think in some companies was never encouraged because there was a fear there'd be a loss of productivity. I think that's hogwash. I think the level of productivity is off the charts. And yeah, I think part of it is we really want to, you know, do well in this environment. We don't want the economy to tank. So there's a real desire to be productive and successful. I think people will just appreciate things more. People will be more generous. I've seen so much generosity around me. You know, we have a neighborhood, little community kind of next door, and there are elderly people in our community. I've talked to a couple of them, got them to use Instacart, help them figure out how to order food from DoorDash. These small kindnesses are so important. And we are doing a little teddy bear bear hunt in our neighborhood. 161 homes have teddy bears in the windows, so that when little kids are going on their walks, they see them and they're counting them. And
they're finding them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of kindness, generosity, and hopefully that will be lasting.
So Anne, what is the one question I didn't ask that I should have that you think is really important to share at this time?
What more can we do? I think everyone needs to look for what else they can do during this time. There are a lot of people in need, and there are small ways and large ways that we can all contribute, both personally and professionally.
I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much again for being here today.
Thank you for asking me. It's great to see you.
You too.